Hey, it's Webs here, back with more cards to review for the new Fractured and Alterac Valley Hearthstone set. This card's review is going to be a little bit odd. There will be some segments that are on out of cards and other segments that are going to be using the official Hearthstone website. This is because I recorded some before they were officially added to the official website, and honestly I just don't feel like re-recording those segments. This video will also probably be a bit longer than normal just because of the fact that I did not expect them to reveal like 13 cards between when I went to bed last night and when I woke up. And I definitely want to cover all of them because there's some really interesting cards in here, including some of the hero cards that weren't revealed before. So let's get into the card discussion, shall we? Alright, so Warrior's first card got revealed today, which is a big shock because I would have never expected a Frost spell to be in Warrior. The card in question is a 3-cost spell called Snowed In. It destroys a damaged minion and freezes all others. It's great for control decks, and it's probably good for even questline just because you can freeze your opponent's board if you're actually racing for face. But like I said earlier, it's not a card that I would have expected in Warrior at all. I would have assumed because of the leak of the Shaman legendary before the set even got announced, Shaman was going to be the class that got all the freeze cards. However, it looks like maybe each class will get one, who knows. If free Shaman is actually a thing, I don't think this card will actually see any play, but if free Shaman isn't a thing, then it can definitely see some type of play in control, at least, because it is generally just a good control card. The second card that got revealed today is Warlock's first card, and because of the time of release, there is no official translation. However, according to Reddit, it would be either Frightening Abomination or Terrifying Abomination. It's a 5-cost minion with 2 attack and 8 HP. Its battle cry reads, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, honorable kill, gain that minion's attack. So this card is kind of interesting to actually think about. It doesn't actually fit really well in current Warlock decks, and at first glance it actually looks more like a Warrior card than a Warlock card, which is kind of funny given the fact that the last card looked more like a Shaman card than a Warrior card. So maybe each individual class is going to get a card that looks kind of odd for their class to actually have in it. If this card isn't a one-off card and it actually sees some support, I could see this seeing some type of play. There are a lot of spells right now in Warlock that actually target minions, which you could easily use this as a finisher if there's an awkward HP line, which currently is the case with minions of 4 HP or even 3, depending if you're using Touch of the Nath Regime or you're using something like Drained Soul. Ivus counterpart has been revealed. Lokholar, the Icelord. This is not a shock to anyone who knows Alterac Valley in World of Warcraft. If one was going to be a card, the other one was going to also be one. It's actually kind of interesting that the one stereotypically summoned by the Horde supports big minions, while the leader of the Horde supports small minions, and the one that stereotypically summoned by the Alliance is a small minion, while the leader actually supports big minions. Lokholar, the Icelord, is a 10-cost minion with 8 attack and 8 HP. It also has Rush, Wind Fury, and costs 5 less if you have less than 15 HP. This is an overall good card for a big minion style deck because it's a card that you can actually play early on if you're behind schedule, and also remove some of your opponent's smaller minions from their board while also providing a powerful minion if you can actually get it to survive an additional turn. This could also see some play in aggro-based decks as a big finisher, just because of the fact that most aggro-based decks don't have much survivability, and being below 15 HP wouldn't be that hard of an issue. It also fits perfectly into Elemental Shaman with Brilliant Macaws, where you can duplicate the elemental that reduces the cost of your other elementals in your deck by 1, thus making this card maybe even a 3 or lower cost card whenever its effect is triggered. So overall, I would say this card probably will see some type of home in some deck. It is powerful enough to actually include, and most of the time it's not actually going to cost 10 when you play it, at most 5. And if you're playing some type of weird Brilliant Macaw deck, it could cost even less. The next card that got revealed is Spammy Arcanus. This card is a 5 cost minion with 3 attack and 4 HP with the battle cry of deal 1 damage to all other minions. If any die, repeat this. So this is basically Defile on a body. It's interesting that we're seeing a lot of these do 1 damage to the entire board mechanics, as it does show that Blizzard is trying to counteract some of the aggro that is currently in the meta and not just printing a bunch of high cost cards. While this card is Defile with a body, Defile was a 2 cost card that actually saw a lot of play back in the day. However, at 5 cost, I don't know if it'll actually see that much play, mainly because at 5 costs, it's kind of late, and much like Defile was, it is heavily reliant on actually having a wide variety of HP for different minions on the board, which on turn 2 is great, but on turn 5 I don't know how feasible that actually is, especially since you can't really have a follow-up play for it. It's definitely a middle of the road card for me because of its cost. Warden of Chains is Demon Hunter's second revealed card. It's a 4 cost minion with 2 attack and 6 HP. It has taunt and a battle cry that reads, if you're holding a demon that costs 5 or more, gain +1/+2. So this is a very interesting card because it actually fits into big demon hunter pretty well. However, it does come with a downside. You can't run Vander in the same deck, which might actually be better to use than 2 of these. But without using Vander, this actually turns your big demons into non-bricks in your hand whenever you have them before you can actually play them. And it also allows you to have some type of way to survive until you can actually get those big demons out. So in the end, this card actually just relies on if big demon hunter wants to use this over Vander or not. Though if they do use it over Vander, that means they probably will need to run a bit more big demons than they normally would like to. But if there's other cards that actually support the deck, like this one does, gaining some effect if you have a demon that costs 5 or more in your hand, then I could actually see the deck actually forming to be some type of playable deck. Rogue's hero card got revealed, which is Shadowcrafter Scabbs. It's a 7 cost card with the battle cry, return all minions to their owner's hands. Summon 2 4/2s shadows with stealth. It also gives you 5 armor like all other hero cards for the most part. Hero power is sleight of hand. It costs 0 and makes the next card you play this turn cost 2 less. So basically it's preparation or shadow step, depending on which one you actually want to compare it to. So let's start off with the battle cry. The battle cry itself is basically Vanish, which is quite insane for Rogue because Rogue hasn't had any type of board clear since Vanish rotated out, and this card only costs 1 more than Vanish. However, you can only run copy, which is kind of the downside. However, at the same time, this card also generates you board presence whenever you do use Vanish to set all the cards back into your hand or your opponent's hand. There, however, is a downside to this. If you use this on a board where there is a questline reward, then you're just going to give your opponent back their questline reward and they'll get double the reward, which is probably not something that you actually want to do. However, you can still combo this out with a bunch of cards that you normally could only run 1 or 2 copies of in the deck. It also will allow you to discount those cards that you sent back into your hand by 2 if you use the hero power, which is actually pretty good itself. I'm really hopeful for this card overall, as it does look like a neat little tool for Rogue to actually use. I don't know how well it's going to be supported with more powerful battle cries, which is the thing that this card will actually need. Druid got a new spell that costs 2 called Capture Coldtooth Mine, and it reads, choose one, draw your lowest cost card or your highest cost card. So at first thought, I would think of a deck that could easily abuse Vander as a way to discount all your other minions in the deck. However, I think the better strategy of this card is going to be trying to draw your highest cost card instead of the lowest cost card, just because you're going to need to run a bunch of low cost cards to actually survive, to actually use some high cost cards in your deck if you're using it with Vander. But if you're using it to just draw out your highest cost card of the deck, it could actually make some combos more consistent than normal, such as survival instincts for clown druid, or even drawing into the clowns before you get survival instincts. You know from Talion that being able to draw out your highest cost card, aka your most powerful card out of your deck, is quite good, and this card actually fills this role, except it costs 2 instead of 5, and it doesn't actually give you a body on board. But you can actually run 2 of this over Talion, and you can also sometimes go into the lowest cost card instead if you need like a lightning bloom for extra mana for a turn or something else. So overall, I would say this is probably a really good card, and we'll see a lot of play. Druid's objective spell got revealed today, which is Frostwolf Kennels. It's a 3-cost spell, of course, that at the end of your turn, summon a 2/2 wolf with stealth, and it lasts 3 turns like everything else that is a objective spell. So it looks like Blizzard is going to try to push Beast Druid as the other type of deck that they're pushing instead of Ramp Druid with the hero card. I don't know how much play this will actually see. However, compared to some of the other beast support that we've seen in the past, this actually is pretty good, especially because this doesn't require you to run additional beasts in your deck at all, which means your consistency factor with Living Seed drawing into something like Moonfang doesn't actually go down, even though you can run more beast support with the additional wolves that you're summoning for the 3 turns. You can also use this in some type of like token aggro deck, just because you can then buff them up a bunch and they have stealth, which your opponent can't do much with. So in the end, I think this is probably one of the better objective spells that we've actually seen for the set. It's going to be kind of cool to see what other beast support that they're going to print out. Speaking of other beast support, frostsaber monarch is another druid card that got revealed today. It costs 7 with 4 attack and 5 HP. It's a beast with taunt, and it costs 1 less for each beast that you've summoned this game. So because it uses summoned instead of played, that means it actually combos out with the objective spell pretty well, and you don't actually have to run a bunch of minions in your deck. However, I don't know if you're going to actually want to run this over some of your other choices for Beast Druid. And with Guardian Animals, there are definitely some better targets than Frostsaber Monarch. The final part of beast support that we've seen today for Druid is Dire Frostwolf. It's a 4-cost minion with 4 attack and 4 HP. It has stealth and the death rattle of summoning a 2/2 wolf with stealth. Kind of interesting to see Blizzard actually printing a bunch of stealth minions for Druid, which is kind of scary to actually think about, because they do have a lot of ways to actually buff up these stealth minions before the opponent can actually do anything with them. Maybe a stealth druid will actually come out of this set. That would actually kind of be funny. Unlike the Frostsaber Matriarch, I think this card will probably see a lot more play than that one in particular, just because of the stealth and the fact that it also gives you another stealth minion whenever it dies. This is just an overall good card, and it's 6/6 worth of stats on a 4-drop card, which actually makes it pretty good. And it's definitely something that you could actually run in a Beast Druid deck without feeling too bad about getting it off of Living Seed or Guardian Animals. Field of Strife is Demon Hunter's objective spell. It costs 2 and it gives your minions +1 attack for 3 turns. So this card is definitely not horrible, to say the least. Giving +1 attack to all your minions on the board for 3 turns is kind of insane for something like an aggro Demon Hunter deck, or even token Demon Hunter if that actually becomes a thing. However, that doesn't change the fact that this card is kind of just boring. However, I do think this card will probably see a lot of play, just because aggro Demon Hunter is generally a deck that's almost always meta relevant in some form of fashion, and this is just a powerful card to actually fit into one such deck. The first of Demon Hunter's legendaries got revealed, which is Alyas Felsoul. It's a 6-cost minion with 6 attack and 6 HP, with the battle cry that it transforms into a 6/6 copy of a demon in your hand. So there are actually a lot of good targets for this card in Big Demon Hunter, which is actually pretty cool. It's nice to actually see Big Demon Hunter get some relatively good support for once. This does kind of make me wonder what Arcanus is actually going to do as a card overall, because I had originally expected him to help out Big Demon Hunter, but now I kind of think he's going to help out aggro Demon Hunter in some form or fashion. If you are running Big Demon Hunter as a deck, the best target is probably Pit Commander for this. However, there are still other options such as Illidari Inquisitor or Ironbound Brute if you're playing Questline with this card for some weird reason. There's also the Void Hound that steals one worth of stats from all minions on the board. There's also the Satyr that increases the cost of all enemy spells by 2. There's just plenty of targets for this, and I can't see a world where this doesn't actually see some type of play in Big Demon Hunter if it becomes a actual deck for once. Do y'all want to build a snowman? Because Blizzard thinks we do. Build a Snowman is a 3-cost frost spell for mage that reads summon a 3/3 snowman that freezes and build a snow brute to your hand, which is a 6-cost spell that does basically the same thing, except it gives you a 6/6, and then it gives you another spell that costs 9 that gives you a 9/9 Snowgar. So this falls under the category of Blizzard supporting 2 archetypes that they've been trying to support throughout the last year that haven't actually got enough support to actually do anything, in the form of Big Spell Mage and Freeze Mage. I don't think this will actually do enough to actually push Freeze Mage to actually be a thing, just for the fact that you don't have an easy way to actually freeze your entire opponent's board. However, I do think this is kind of a good card for Big Spell Mage, just for the fact that the later 2/3 of this card would count as big spells. However, I don't know if that's actually going to be that relevant, because it does hurt the consistency of Deep Water Evoker. However, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. You still will be able to draw out a bunch of your high power cards if you are using this in Big Spell Mage, but I don't think it's the payoff that you need with Big Spell either. Baron Glasshear is the Shaman legendary that got revealed today, technically, even though it got leaked out about 2 weeks ago. It's a 7-cost minion with 6 attack and 6 HP that reads Battlecry for each frost spell that you cast this game. Summon a 3/4 elemental that freezes. I find it kind of funny that the set that returns hero cards into the metagame for every single class is the one where they're trying to push Freeze Shaman again, because the last time they tried to push Freeze Shaman was in Knights of the Frozen Throne, where they changed the effect of a bunch of cards last minute because they thought it wasn't fun to play against. Though the Hearthstone team has actually changed quite a bit since then, so maybe they have decided the other way around. This is probably the card that I can't say the most if it's going to see any play or not, just for the sole fact that there are 0 frost spells in current standard for Hearthstone. It might see some play in Wild, but from my knowledge, actually finishes the games pretty quickly. I do know that one of the other cards revealed today is a frost spell for Shaman, but if that's the only frost spell that we're actually going to see for Shaman, that isn't enough to actually make this even playable. You're going to have to rely on card generation for it to be playable if that is the only frost spell that actually gets released with this set. However, Shaman's weakness is card generation, so that isn't a really good argument for it. I think this has a lot of potential, a lot more than Marabi did back in Knights of the Frozen Throne, at least in Shaman, but I can't say for sure just because we don't have enough information right now. Now, the other Shaman card that got revealed today is direct support to our legendary friend, Snowball Fight. It's a 3-cost spell that reads deal 1 damage to a minion and freeze it. If it survives, repeat it on another minion. And of course, it's a Frost School spell. I think this card is actually pretty cool for a control Shaman deck. However, much like the legendary that got revealed for Shaman, I don't know if this will see much play. However, I do think this one has more potential, just for the fact that it doesn't require any type of other freeze support to actually see some play. And this could definitely be a good card for some type of stall tactic for control Shaman, or maybe even an aggro-based deck if you need to freeze your opponent's board so they can't clear out your board if you're rushing for face. I am hopeful to see other freeze Shaman cards actually with this set, just for the fact that we've only seen these 2 cards, and that's what they decided to show off first. Grim Totem Bounty Hunter is a neutral minion that got revealed today. It's a 3-cost minion with 4 attack and 2 HP, and its battle cry reads destroy an enemy legendary minion. This card definitely seems to be a card that was just printed to get rid of the questline rewards off the board as quickly as humanly possible, because those seem to be the best target for this. I don't know how much play this is actually going to see, just for the fact that I don't know how many decks besides questline actually run enough legendary minions for this to actually be a viable tool. But at least the artwork is kind of cool, right? Tasmin's Philatrophy is the first legendary for Warlock that got revealed today. It's a 4-cost spell that reads discover a friendly death rattle minion that died this game. Give your minions its death rattle. My first thought while reading this card was, oh neat, death rattle support in Warlock. And then I thought, wait, there isn't really any death rattles in Warlock right now that you'd want to copy. because for Warlock, there is honestly only a few good targets that are only for Warlock, such as the enhanced Dreadlord or the Envoy Rustwick. However, I don't think those are even good targets to actually consider for this aggro-based Warlock deck, but it could also see some play in something like a N'Zoth Warlock deck. It has a lot of potential, it just depends on what other support cards actually get printed for this. But as it stands right now, those are probably the best options to actually try to make use of this. This does combo out with the original Tasmin since it is a Shadow School spell, which is pretty cool. And it does make sense for this to actually be a card, just for the fact that Tasmin this set is actually a Lich. So we needed to have her Philatrophy as a card some way, somehow. Speaking of Tasmin's newfound lichdom, Dreadlord Jasmine is Warlock's new hero card for the set. It's a 6-cost hero card that reads Battlecry, deal 3 damage to all minions, shuffle 3 rifts into your deck, draw 3 cards. Her hero power is Chains of Dread, which shuffles a rift into your deck, and then you draw 1 card, and the Fel Rifts summon a 3/3 Dread Imp whenever they're drawn. So between this card and the Philatrophy, I think a Death Rattle deck might actually appear for Warlock, just for the sole fact that you actually have infinite minions for your Death Rattles to actually be copied over to if you're trying to run the Philatrophy. Also have infinite resource generation through the rifts that you shuffle into your deck and infinite draw power, so this could even see some play in questline Warlock. Also not having to worry about ever running out of resources for your opponent to deal with. And in a Death Rattle deck, the major factor of that actually becoming a thing is just any additional support we see. But the fact that both of the legendaries kind of directly support that idea anyways, I would almost want to bet that's going to be one of the major themes for Warlock in this set. I'd be very shocked if it wasn't, but I would definitely say this card makes me very hopeful for the deck to actually to appear. Final thoughts of the cards that have been revealed today is there's a lot of potential for a lot of interesting decks in this new set. And the fact that Blizzard seems to actually be trying to balance the hero cards for once is quite promising and something I'm definitely glad to actually see. For the review for tomorrow, I don't know if I'm going to post it tomorrow or on Saturday because there's not going to be many cards revealed probably during the weekend. However, I do kind of want to cover the mercenary changes too, but I don't want the mercenary video that I release tomorrow to actually get buried, but we'll see in the end. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, bye bye.